So yeah, this is me, and this, as you may know, if you watch my Konica video, my Canon F1 broke on this trip. This was the same trip that I took my new Canon 7 to, which whilst it did not break, it had some light leak issues. And this is my Minolta 500 SI, which created this cool image, but also did this. Another Minolta of mine, my 5000, doesn't meet it correctly, as you can see by this underexposed photo. And this camera here, well, it didn't fire most of the roll, and I got 2 shots I didn't mean to shoot. And this point and shoot, well, it light leaks the shit out of stuff. So what to do when your camera breaks? Well, it depends on what's gone wrong. Is it repairable, and how much is it going to cost you? And is that cost worth it? Well, to start off, let's look at my first point and shoot, the Ricoh. This camera is one of my first film cameras, and I cannot remember when I got it. It light leaks, and that can kind of be cool, as you can tell by this photo, and not as cool with this shot, where the light leaks in the wrong place. You can possibly repair these cameras, but as they are so cheap, it's not worth it, and they are just not that good to even bother. You can get the light seals replaced, however that may not fix the issue, as these are made from cheap plastic which can have holes in them. As for my Canon 7, this was a birthday gift from my partner. It just happens to have a little bit of a light leak issue. I went to Reddit, who said that it was a frontal light leak, which I thought to be the case as well, as this happened only on the 1/30th and 1/60th shots. However, the repair guy could not find that to be the case, and thought that it just needed new light seals based on the negatives. After chatting back and forth, we decided to go ahead with that. He changed the light seals, and I took this camera out for a spin when I got it back. I put in a roll of Ilford 100 colour and went for a morning walk to the market with my partner. The Ilford only had 12 exposures, which made it a good test roll. That morning there was a marathon along the bay, so that made for a more unique photo run that was a little bit different than the usual. And with this photo, I really need to hold my camera more steady and hold the composition, even if the composition would have been average. Dropping the camera when I was taking the photo definitely ruined it. I wanted to get a sly shot of this dude with cool pink hair, but it's a little bit messy and not well defined, and he doesn't stand out. I should have come up closer to take the photo, even though it makes me feel a little uncomfortable. This one of the little pancake store came out a little bit better, but the framing is a little off. I did get this one of my partners stealing my food, however. I really do like this photo, apart from the fact that my partner is stealing my food. We then headed home, where I got this shot that was just out of focus. The big downside to rangefinders is not seeing visually where you are in focus, especially as it looks all in focus, and only realizing after the fact that you forgot to focus. This photo is a bit better. I guessed the focal distance and it came out okay. On our way home, I spotted this guy just vibing down whilst his dog ran around, so I got this snap. I also got this one later on when I was taking photos for a different future project. I then went out for a handheld sunset pic to wrap up this roll. All the Ilford photos were shot at 125 and above, so I wanted to test the sticky shutter. So I went back out with my Canon 7, this time with 20-year-old expired Konica 200, which I shot at 50 ISO to see if I could get any shots with light leaks and shoot at shutter speeds that are more likely to have a sticky shutter. And I was pleasantly surprised to find none, and I got some really gorgeous photos whilst I was at it. I later went out at night with my tripod and my Canon 7 and wanted to take some sunset/early night photos, that remind me of looking at the Manhattan skyline from Brooklyn. Shooting here in Wellington of the city and the skyline is difficult because some of the best spots have barriers in the way that block the view, or you need a longer lens, and I only have a 50mm on this Canon 7 III. After flipping the camera 90 degrees, this portrait shot works for me. Whilst mostly silhouetted, I think overall has interesting details. There is just something about the time of day when the night is about to settle in that just makes for the best time of day to shoot a photo of the city. What little light there is illuminates the backdrop, just enough for the mountainside to stand out against the sky, but allows the lights of the city to flourish. Now, my Minolta 500 SI is a different story. This camera is broken, but in a cool way. This camera does not lock photos in correctly, so it causes these kinds of overlapping frames, sometimes super overlapping as this one. It doesn't look great on colour film, but it does look cool in black and white. If this camera was worth more, then yes, I might get it repaired, but because this is a cool effect and the camera's cheap and I have another, I'm going to leave it as is and maybe even do random special projects with it. My other 500 SI is a slightly different story. So this one isn't really broken, it's just cracked on the battery compartment. But as this is separate from where the film is stored, it so far has not caused any light leak issues. So I'm keeping as is. I might retire it when I get another one of these cameras, which when I come to think of it, I actually have bought one with some rolls of film and I got the camera as an extra. So I may just replace. Mainly because I have so many lenses for this camera setup that I still want to use, and electronically from my experience, these cameras, the 500 SIs, are problematic. On the other hand, I have another Minolta that I never want to use again, the 5000 SI. This thing is unfixable, or at least too cheap a camera to bother fixing. This camera's shutter does not fire correctly, often underexposing photos by a number of stops. I don't think I got one good photo out of this camera. So many of them came out underexposed. Now you may think it's a faulty meter inside the camera, but I also have shot according to my external light meters that work for my other cameras, and they turn out just fine. I even half shot a roll of 800T in this camera for the Minolta part to be useless and the other camera's 15 or so photos to turn out perfectly. If your photos are always underexposed on one camera, something is off with that camera for sure, with most likely the shutter being the issue, and depending on the cost of the camera will depend on whether it is worth fixing. Now back to my favourite camera, my Canon F1. It has taken some of my favourite shots. These things are supposed to be tanks, but upon the crown ranges, this camera decided to do me dirty. Now, as I mentioned, these things are supposed to be tough. Even back in the day, they were renowned for this. In my day job, I work with a former photojournalist who took one of these to Antarctica for this very reason. But unfortunately, this one's shutter mechanism is kaput, jammed to hell, and unrepairable according to the technician I took it to. Replaceable, but unrepairable. I'm lucky my partner has one with a slightly sticky shutter, which is currently with the same repairman, which I will get back in a month's time, hopefully, with the shutter fixed. Due to this camera's worth, it is fine to spend some money to get the shutter fixed when the shutter is sticky, but replacing the whole camera shutter setup for my one was probably cheaper to buy one on eBay than actually replace the whole thing. Now recently I bought another Mamiya, a 6x6, to help fill out my collection. This camera had light seals replaced by my local camera store before I used it, as the light seals on the camera were clearly well worn when I received it. Unfortunately for 220 film, which I decided to shoot with, it does not have a paper backing. and ended up with light leaks unlike my 120 film. The issue we believe was that the light seals were not thick enough. As you can see, they did a really good fresh job. They took the camera back and gave it thicker seals, and did a test with standard 35mm, which does not have a backing, just like the 220, which didn't seem to have an issue. I won't be able to fully test whether this has been fixed till I risk another 220 roll through it. We will see when I feel like doing that. Now, I'm going to leave you with a bunch of shots that I took for this project where I did not record any video. Anyway, till next time, it's been real, guys.